Riverside Park breathed cold October air as Officer Jack Monroe, a steady, mid-30s patrolman shaped by loss and duty, walked the path with Atlas, his 3-year-old German Shepherd canine partner. Fallen leaves whispered beneath boots, joggers drifted past, and a woman pushed a stroller along the river's edge. Atlas halted mid-stride, muscles coiled, eyes fixed. Jack read the posture he had learned to trust. The stroller rolled silent and too smooth, gliding without the faint natural jostle a living infant makes. The woman avoided every passing glance, pace exact and clipped, as if counting steps. Jack matched Atlas's line of sight and weighed the scene against years of instinct. Ordinary details rarely align so perfectly when something is wrong. The morning looked harmless, but the air felt staged. The question pressed like a thumbprint on glass: why didn't the stroller bounce? Jack closed distance with measured calm, letting Atlas work the scent and posture. The woman's ponytail swung with an athlete's cadence, but her shoulders telegraphed tension. Atlas rumbled a warning growl, not aggression, but a flag raised over an unseen field. Jack noted the stroller's blanket, tucked too cleanly, and the mother's fixed smile that never reached her eyes. Introductions formed silently in his mind, a checklist against deception. Jack was not a hero in his head, he was a custodian of small truths. Atlas pressed forward, then braced. The woman shifted her grip like a sprinter nudging blocks. Every hair on the dog's back stood like antennae catching storm charge. The river kept moving, the woman didn't. Ordinary mornings do not argue with trained noses. The rhythm of the park stalled at the hinge of a choice.
The stroller shoved forward, wheels rattling against a groove in the path, and the woman launched into flight. Jack caught the handle, saved the carriage from tipping, and released Atlas with a practiced motion that lived in muscle memory. The dog streaked across grass, a silent arrow guided by scent and purpose. The woman zigged toward trees, misjudging the ground's softness. Panic authored clumsy steps, fear dragged at speed. Atlas cut an angle, herded without bite, and anchored her retreat with presence alone. Jack's feet pounded earth that gave and held, breath measured against distance. The park's horizon collapsed to the space between pursuit and capture. At the tree line, the woman folded more than fell, pulling herself small as if to disappear into bark and shadow. Atlas held steady. The run had said enough. Jack returned to the stroller with careful hands and a chest that remembered losses too vividly. The infant under the blanket looked 4 months old, cheeks pale, lips parted, breath thin as winter light. The quiet unsettled more than any cry could. Skin to the touch felt chilled, a porcelain coolness that did not belong to sunrise. Jack summoned care with economy, warmth, rhythm, the steadiness babies borrow from steady people. The park's noise drifted back, but the world inside the stroller remained muted. A life sideways from the expected has a texture that trained eyes recognize. He built a frame of facts, living, breathing, underwarmed, underwatered. He filed the moment where he keeps the urgent and the unforgivable. The baby did not wail for help. Not all alarms ring out loud. Some alarms hold their breath.
The precinct hummed with fluorescent resolve as Captain Dana Whitaker, a sharp, principled leader with a habit of seeing 2 moves ahead, summarized the first pass of records. The infant's name did not exist in databases that usually echo back within seconds. No birth certificate, no clinic note, no well visit logged. The woman offered a name: Erin Blake, late 30s, athletic, silent tears on repeat, hands that trembled only when still. Nothing verified beyond syllables. Jack stood at the glass of an observation room and measured posture more than words. Absence can be louder than presence, and a blank record can hide a workshop of crimes. Atlas slept with one eye open beneath his handler's chair, ears flicking at every shoe on tile. Paper trails refused to begin. The space where a pass should be stayed stubbornly empty. Back in the evidence bay, Atlas nosed the stroller like a librarian sorting shelves. The dog's stillness turned precise, paw tapping an undercarriage seam that had no business existing. Jack gloved up, probed, and levered a false panel free. Folded inside, a hand-drawn map, grimy with travel, listed rest stops, gas stations, and one motel star circled. Old Cedar Inn. The marks looked methodical, like logistics written in pen instead of policy. In the margin, a single word appeared, block letters pressed hard enough to dent the paper beneath. Ellis. Atlas huffed and settled, job momentarily done. Jack's mind built a corridor across counties, a conveyor of small lives treated as parcels. He pinned the map under lamps that flattened secrets. The route did not end at any home. The route ended nowhere honest.
Night carved the city into quiet lanes as Jack sat at his kitchen table with cold coffee and the map's ache. Atlas lay at his feet, loyal ballast against undertow. Grief moves like weather through good officers. Jack carried a storm named for a previous canine partner who never came home. The ache sharpened attention rather than dulled it, turning rest into strategy. He documented patterns, counted miles between circles, measured hours against infant metabolism. Logistics told truth when people did not. The baby in the stroller drew breath tonight because a dog argued with normal. That argument needed to continue across state lines. Jack texted a single thought to Agent Elena Ruiz, a state-federal bridge with quiet fire. This isn't single incident. This is pipeline. The message felt less like a warning than a door handle turning. Interrogation rooms erase excuses, leaving only choices and lights that do not blink. Erin Blake wore exhaustion like a borrowed coat, too large and not hers to keep. Jack offered protection in trade for a direction. She stared at the glass as though it could open. Words finally emerged like splinters. "Old Cedar Inn serves no travelers," she said without voice. "Only people between places. The babies wait there until numbers change hands." She claimed 3 drops, no names, no faces beyond shadows and instructions left in odd locations. Atlas watched from the hall, learning shape and cadence like language. Jack logged each phrase with forensic care. Wait, between, drops, numbers. Waiting is not rest when it serves a schedule. The map on the table turned from ink to operation. The promise of safety would need teeth.
A tired gas station off a rural highway held a camera that refused to die. Jack and Atlas traced the map's ink to a dumpster's edge where receipts, a child's sock, and a half-used bottle of generic formula waited under grit. Inside, a clerk shrugged at the idea of footage mattering. The feed revealed a midnight exchange 2 days before the park. A black van, a second car, and a small bundle slid from door to door like inventory. The van departed on the exact road leading toward Old Cedar Inn. Jack extracted timestamps and still frames, pinned motion to moments, and built cause from circumstance. Atlas worked the perimeter and sneezed dust out of righteous nostrils. The lens did what memory often cannot. It told a continuous truth. The route was no longer theory, it was a spine. Old Cedar Inn stood hollow, a husk of vacation dreams gone to boards and graffiti. The room marked on the map opened like a held breath. Inside, a crib with milk-stiff sheets. On the wall, a number handwritten with a firmness that meant accounting rather than sentiment. 1-8, Maya. Jack felt the word land like a coin in an empty jar. Numbers that carry names or ledgers pretending to be lullabies. On a torn notepad by the sink, lines scrawled a direction no decent traveler needs. Next pickup, Ridgeway Rest Area, 29th. Dates and routes replaced blinks and breaths. Atlas circled once, then sat, as if honoring a child not present. Jack pocketed the note and built a clock inside his chest. Time pressure is the villain's best friend until someone rewinds the plan.
The briefing room compressed urgency into maps, radios, and roles. Agent Elena Ruiz, a deliberate operator who treats silence as a tool, aligned unmarked units along approaches to Ridgeway Rest Area. Captain Dana Whitaker granted latitude with accountability. Jack accepted point with Atlas, trusting the dog's unerring arithmetic of scent. The operation's spine was simple. Intercept, secure infants with medical teams, follow handlers to their next orders, and pull the thread until it snarled. The rest area's geometry favored speed and confusion. The team arranged to deny both to traffickers. Radios whispered test phrases, drone feeds stitched the dark into comprehension, and watch times stacked like dominoes poised to fall. The note's date turned from ink to present tense. Interdiction begins as choreography and ends as consequences. The clock refused mercy. So would they. Headlights stitched through trees, van and sedan drawing a figure 8 in gravel. Doors slid, a bundle moved, and gravity betrayed hands. The small weight tumbled from intention toward ruin. Atlas launched with a snap of purpose and gathered the bundle without harm, landing in a practice older than training: protect the fragile. Agents converged, engines boxed exits, and orders became metal and cuffs. The air trembled with shouts in relief. The infant breathed, stunned but intact. Jack transferred the child to gloved medics and watched a chain of care unfurl with precision. Evidence blossomed in glove compartments and under seats, handwritten lists, burner phones, and the sharp odor of secrecy. Numbers reappeared, linking 18 and 19 across pages that looked more like shipping manifests than parenting. The world narrowed to proof and pulse.
Back behind glass and steel, Aaron Blake's posture shed defensiveness and adopted consequence. Jack placed a photograph of Maya, safe in a hospital bassinet, on the table between them. Gratitude did not absolve, but it untied a knot. Aaron named the architecture she knew. Handlers take orders from nowhere obvious. Pickups are staged to look like coincidence. And the person who owns the routes exists only as a word. Ellis. No eyes, no voice, only directives. She sketched the habit of keys taped under benches and notes slid beneath vending machines. Jack didn't chase blame, he harvested process. Atlas slept near the door, heartbeat settling the room. The network's anonymity had a brand without a face. A faceless brand still leaves receipts. The next steps demanded speed, and speed demands excellent dogs and relentless people. The evidence board expanded like a city swallowing fields. Photos of infants and toddlers occupied corners once used for burglaries and traffic collisions. Strings traced highways across county lines into a triangle too neat to be random. Clinic labels, supply lists, and fuel logs formed a chorus louder than any confession. Jack wrote a question dead center in red marker that refused to dry. Who is number 20? The absence of a photograph felt like a siren. Atlas's gaze tracked every movement as if mapping intentions. Captain Whitaker authorized longer shifts in quieter channels. Agent Ruiz funneled federal resources without turning the precinct into theater. The room smelled like coffee and copier heat, and a strange hope that tastes like iron. Answers usually trickle. This one promised a flood. The board owned every glance in the room.
Wren's Nest Diner smelled like syrup and steam, a friendly disguise for Crossroads business. Jack took a seat with a view and let absence reveal patterns. A woman in a red hoodie arrived, carrying tension in a canvas duffel. She never looked at menus or a waitress. She placed a baby monitor on the table and studied a black and white crib feed. The child on the screen lay still, supervised by distance rather than love. Red hoodie served as uniform more than warmth. Jack read the code within routine, guardianship outsourced to brick and brush somewhere nearby. Atlas rested under the table, eyes angled toward the door and the monitor's tiny glow. Information hides in plain sight when arrogance trusts anonymity. Time stamped the corner of the screen. Fractions of an hour harden into danger quickly. A mile east through scrub and pine, an old hunting shack held heat from a portable unit and a crib built to be temporary. Inside lay a baby girl, awake and wordless, eyes following the ceiling seams. On a pacifier, black marker had written a name that did not belong to a warehouse. Ellie. Jack balanced tenderness with triage, lifted, wrapped, and handed the child to waiting medics who arrived by design rather than good luck. Atlas scanned corners with slow certainty, nose making a map of recent occupation. Nearby, a backpack offered formula and schedules, a proposal of indifference disguised as care. The trail promised something larger, whispered through litter and timing. Bigger activity required coordination and confidence, and both tend to repeat themselves. Another transfer loomed. Momentum favors the prepared.
coastal fog wrapped a rental cabin in quiet that felt curated. A caretaker's memory offered a still portrait, a little girl who never spoke and a stuffed bunny hugged thin. Under a loose floorboard, a still warm burner phone confessed its last call. Logs pointed toward a scenic overlook used by postcards and secrets alike. In a bedroom corner, a pair of bright purple rain boots waited beside an open backpack. The detail wired straight to Jack's board, matching a face labeled Lily and a number branded 23. Atlas nosed the boots, then the threshold, then the exit, sketching a corridor for pursuit. The ocean's constant roar masked small movements in the distance. Patterns reward the patient and the persistent. The clock, as always, scolded. Scenic views make excellent staging when no one stares too closely. Otter Point's lot held a silver van pointed toward cliffs and a decision. A woman with rain-matted hair stood outside the driver's door, posture stripped of tactics and swollen with exhaustion. Vanessa Cross identified herself without words, lifting hands in a gesture older than courts. She indicated the rear hatch. Inside, Lily lay cocooned in a blanket, purple boots still on, fingers clutching a stuffed bunny with worn ears. Lily's eyes lifted toward Atlas, and a small smile found room where fear had lived. Jack marked the exchange as evidence that proximity to goodness can restore what neglect unthreads. Vanessa's story would demand sorting, but the child's heartbeat deserved priority. The overlook watched without comment. The sea kept its counsel. Certain rescues arrived soft, as if the world decided to yield for a minute.
Back at the precinct, a decrypted drive removed any lingering illusion that infants were the network's only cargo. A storage unit cam showed a crate dragged open in stale light. Inside sat a boy older than any number on the wall, eyes covered, mouth taped, wrists bound. No wristband, no recorded number, no pretense of medical management. The footage's date marked 2 weeks earlier. Jack recognized a location signature as if it whispered across pixels. Corrugated metal, scuffed floor paint, a supply cabin echo that matched an old camp shuttered years ago. Atlas lifted his head at the shift in Jack's breathing. The pipeline had widened. Logistics scale upward when left alone. The board would need new pins, and the team would need new permissions. The lie had outgrown its first disguise. Camp Grady slouched under weather and neglect, yet held shapes familiar to anyone who has known bunk beds and whistles. Atlas tracked scent with practiced geometry, pausing at the second of 2 small cabins sheltered behind rusted canoes. The locked door surrendered to force and purpose. Inside, air tasted of mildew and fear. A cough, small and muffled, bent the room's angle toward a corner where a crate echoed the video's frame. A boy with a name he would later scrawl as Nick blinked at light he did not trust. Jack cut bonds that had no right to exist and let Atlas offer presence before hands. The dog's calm served as a bridge back to people. Outside, the sky looked the same as before, which is one of the world's most unsettling habits.
Before dawn, a derelict freight depot held a refrigerated truck idling like a secret. Atlas pulled toward the southern loading bay, nails ticking on concrete that knew more than it could say. Inside the trailer, cold air met warm fear. A little boy in dinosaur pajamas trembled beside plastic bins and straps, a wristband spelling the arithmetic traffickers prefer. 21. Toby. Jack gathered him with care that promised continuity rather than miracles. Evidence tucked beneath panels, repeated signatures seen before, orders etched in blunt script that tried to flatten humanity into coordination. The trailer offered receipts, rental agreements, fuel stops lined up with map circles. The shape of the operation kept refusing to be anything but organized. Atlas's breath wrote small clouds in the cold, and each cloud dissolved into new resolve.
The quarry sting moved like a plan taught well. Vehicles boxed, agents swarmed. A runner dropped a blanket that turned into a heartbeat saved by timing. More children waited inside the trailer, some too quiet, all alive. Among the found objects, one plastic band held letters that reached colder than the refrigerated air. 25. Reserved. The word tasted like money rather than schedule. Proof that supply meets purchase in places where law is treated as fiction. Jack held the tag with a gloved hand and memorized its weight. Atlas surveyed the perimeter, nose arguing with dust and diesel. The network's cruelty had stepped from transport into marketplace. The case no longer honored the boundaries of local crime. The tag wanted to live at the board's center. It wanted the whole room to stare.
Some investigations require sunlight to starve them of oxygen. Jack faced microphones with the composure of someone who chooses words like tools, not trophies. He framed the operation as coordinated, multi-state, industrialized harm aimed at children who slipped between records and attention. He gave credit to partners and saved the last sentence for Atlas. The four-legged reason a quiet morning turned into rescue rather than obituary. The country watched and measured sincerity against fatigue. Tips would arrive now, mostly noise, some signal. The noise is the price paid to find the signal. Inside the precinct, the board shone under fluorescent lights like a vow carved into ink and paper. Exposure changes behavior. It also accelerates desperation. The network would adapt. So would the team. Sunlight is not conclusion, it is leverage. Financials whisper where people shout. Agent Elena Ruiz spread payment receipts, fuel logs, and shell company transfers across a table until lines formed a triangle that drew itself. 2 states, 3 corridors, 1 private airstrip hiding beneath vineyard romance. Underground bunkers built during old panics had been repurposed for new ones. Warrants rolled out with signatures that understood urgency. Jack pictured scale moving from vans to runways. Atlas needed no picture, only a command and a scent. The team reviewed satellite stills and wind patterns and planned for chases that disappear into rows of grapes and shadows that look like nothing from the road. Money believes in secrecy because it often buys it. Tonight, secrecy would meet rummaging hands and dogs that do not negotiate with locked doors when children are behind them.
Bunkers aren't quiet. They hum with what they hide. Inside, agents found medical kits aligned like apologies and formula stacked like inventory. On a chalkboard grid, numbers and letters tried to pretend they were planning rather than trafficking. One code stood out for its awful efficiency, L28, prepped for private air. The sequence slotted neatly into the board back home, linking missing with scheduled with stolen. Atlas paused near a wall panel and refused to move along. Jack knocked twice and heard hollowness answer. Panels surrender to insistence. The room's false boundary cracked, giving up the idea that secrets remain secrets when enough eyes refuse to blink. The bunker had been designed to mute sound and page turning. Persistence makes enough noise to rattle concrete. The chalk squeaked once more in memory. Behind the wall, a tight room exhaled stale breath and fear shaped into routine. A crate held another small life wrapped in hospital fabric and clutching "Goodnight Moon" as if stories can anchor boats in high wind. Sometimes they can. Jack carried the child with a care learned from repetition he wishes he didn't have. Atlas lay where the crate had been, lowering the room's temperature of panic by simply existing. Every rescue moved the board, even when it didn't move the mastermind.
Outside, the vineyard pretended to be only grapes, and a tasting room sign left dark for the night. The ground beneath had told a different story. The team logged, lifted, labeled, and promised the child the ordinary future that had been withheld. Hope, when repeated, becomes structure.
Alias work trims stories down to bone. Ruiz and her analysts braided together fragments until the ghost called Ellis acquired a probable spine. Gavin Ellis, once a defense logistics expert who learned to move sensitive cargo across borders without footprints. Disappearances do not clean a person's past, they only reroute it. Surveillance stills, pulled from a truck stop 2 days before the quarry raid, suggested a conversation with a detained transporter, the timing too perfect to call coincidence. The private jet to Baja, Mexico left after the vineyard raid, a reminder that privilege travels faster than warrants when altitude is involved. Jack marked the distance between proof and arrest, the longest yard in certain games. Atlas slept with both paws forward, as if already pointed toward the next door that needed opening. Not all victories involve cuffs. Some victories involve playrooms where laughter sounds like renovation. Maya giggled in a beam of afternoon light. Toby rolled a toy truck beneath a chair and grinned. Lily, purple boots by her ankles, traced words from Goodnight Moon to Nick, who listened with the careful attention of a person relearning safety. Nurses moved like good weather. Caseworkers built next steps with patience and practical optimism. Jack stood at a respectful distance and measured the space between trauma and trust, a space that Atlas often crosses first. The dog lay half asleep, one ear cocked toward a squeak that could be fear or joy, prepared to adjust accordingly. Healing is not headline work, but it is the point. The board back at the precinct held room for this chapter too.
Even in a room full of faces reclaimed from ledgers, one object demanded its own square of cork and string. The plastic wrist tag that read 25 reserved sat like a dare. Reserved means promise to a buyer, not promise to a child. Jack pinned it dead center and let it dictate the board's gravity. Around it clustered shipping manifests, payment confirmations, and code fragments that spoke in half-truths. The open question turned sharper. The target was not a place. The target was a person who planned to receive a child as if closing a purchase order. Naming buyers moves operations from shadow to consequence. Atlas watched the pinning ritual with the patience of a creature who understands that choices gather in clusters before they fall. Certain words do not get forgiven. Evenings return parks to themselves. Jack walked the same riverside path where a stroller once glided too smoothly. The water kept faith with its banks, and the air smelled like cold leaves and second chances. Atlas chased a tennis ball with the full-hearted sprint of a dog whose work holds gravity and whose play insists on light. Jack caught the ball, scratched warm fur, and looked toward a horizon that held more pins, more rooms, more doors that would betray their hinges. The work had shifted from incident to campaign. And campaigns end when choices end. In the distance, a jogger laughed, a stroller rolled, and this time it bounced the way life usually does. Promises are not poems here, they are fuel. Atlas barked once, a clean period at the end of intention.